someone hurt me physically, and that person I loved dearly. And while trying to reconcile the physical hurt and the damage that they did to me, they said to me something that was very important. They said, I don't think you've ever experienced true forgiveness. She was like, I don't even think you know what true forgiveness feels like. And I had never heard those words said to me before. And in the immediate moment, I was extremely, I probably took offense to it. Like, I've forgiven people before. Like, what do you mean? And it took me a lot of reflecting on those statements to realize that there may be some truth to that. And the point of this talk is to not only dig deep as far as men to think about these things, like what does forgiveness truly look like as a man, but also how are we going to explain to our kids true forgiveness? How are we going to model true forgiveness to our children? And our kids are going to grow up and see us in moments and experiences where we're going to have to practice forgiveness. And how are we going to model that? So that's what this talk today is about, is essentially in fatherhood, how are we going to explain to our children what is true forgiveness? And also, as an individual, as your highest self, have you ever experienced it before? And, what does it look like to truly forgive? This is in my 365 Dad journal. I believe the exact prompt is, I wrote it as something like, how would you explain true forgiveness to your children? And obviously, I just told the story that inspired that. So, like I said, was in a relationship with someone who I loved, and they put hands on me. One experience, but a lot in that one moment. That got me thinking, have I ever truly forgiven anyone before? And when I think about it, I think to my mind, I'm like, I've forgiven people, right? People have done me wrong. I've given money away and people said they would pay me back and they kind of went ghost and fell off the planet of Earth. And I'm talking about a significant amount of money and I've never gotten it back. And, I'm not trying to fight them, but that's not really true forgiveness when I think about it, because I kind of put up very strict boundaries and I just kept it moving. And I don't really look at them the same. So I may not be engaging in, hey, where's my money? Or, hey, you did this to me. You said this, you did that. But am I truly looking at that individual the same? Probably not, right? And so I think that is the essence of true forgiveness. If we're able to still take care of our well-being, but while still wishing this individual, like, I want you to do good. I want you to do well. So in this talk, I'm going to break down a couple things. I'm going to break down, in my opinion, what I think true forgiveness is not. And then after I break down what true forgiveness is not, I'm then going to break down some ways that we can model this and we can explain to our children what is true forgiveness. These ways I'm going to break down, in my opinion, I think they can work for if you have a younger child or even if you have, a teenage kid like myself. I have a 3-year-old and a 13-year-old, and I find ways to talk about these things with them when I break down the practices and when I break down the framework. So I think you'll find it helpful as well. All right, so let's talk about what true forgiveness is not. So true forgiveness, to me, the first thing is it is not instant. It's not microwave popcorn. True forgiveness is a process. And anybody who is trying to rush the process of you forgiving them for what they've done to you, they're more concerned about their own comfort. They're more concerned about their own freedom of feeling bad for what they did to you. But just remember, true forgiveness is not instant. It's not microwave popcorn. It really is a process. The second thing is true forgiveness is not, I would say, This is a pretty tough one because I think this is the thing I struggle with the most. It's not reconciliation. It doesn't have to be, right? And this is what we all struggle with because when she put hands on me, after I had some time to reflect, I immediately felt the best thing to do in this moment was to reconcile, to come back as one. And while I was trying to reconcile, I was realizing that I was always thinking if we got into a little argument, I was always thinking like, I gotta duck. I gotta watch myself because I was just always reflecting on what happened to me. And I just want to say it's okay. And this is how I'm going to tell it to my children as well. That I have told my son this. It's okay to forgive somebody and still wish them well from a distance, right? So we may not have the same dynamic as we once did before, but I think the forgiveness comes in where it's like, yo, I actually want you to do well. However long it takes you to get there, that's your journey. But you ideally should be in a place where you're like, I still want you to do well. I still want you to learn from this. I still wish you nothing but success. So we don't necessarily have to reconcile. And I think that's what I struggled with, over time when I'm looking at moments where people I felt have caused harm to me in any type of way. I felt like I had to reconcile. We had to be where we were before. And the moment I realized that that is not the case, that was a turning point for me when it comes to, what does it feel like to truly forgive someone? The third thing, and I think is really important, is this idea of, not removing accountability. So if we cause harm to people, we necessarily don't want to feel like what we did was okay. So if someone caused harm to you and they hurt you in any way, you should want to know that it's not okay to remove the accountability piece, right? We still need to be accountable for actions. And oftentimes I've seen situations where people get hurt and they almost kind of, it's okay. I forgive you. It's okay. And I'm like, no, it is not okay, because if you keep saying it's okay, they're just going to do it over and over again. So no, it is not okay. Yes, I'm going to look at you with eyes of compassion, but that right there was a no-go, right? And now we can move forward now that I've established that this is not going to be on your time. I'm not going to just be magically healed on your time, right? We've established that this dynamic may not look the same, but I am going to wish you well. We've established that. And the third thing we've established is that was not okay. I think those three things are important when we're talking about what forgiveness isn't, what true forgiveness isn't. It's not instant. You don't have to reconcile, and it is not removing accountability. Something that I always think about that I learn is basically think about it as two arrows, right? So the first arrow is the damage that was caused to you, the experience, the hurt that was done. So, whether that be like my situation, somebody physically putting hands on me in a romantic relationship, or whether it be somebody verbally hurting you, whatever anyone can do to hurt you. That is the first arrow. And we can't stop that from happening, basically, right? That's going to happen in certain occasions. You're going to get that first arrow is always going to happen to you. That's life. I think what we all do is shoot ourselves with the second arrow. And that second arrow is, oh, how could this happen to me? Oh, I can't believe that this person did this. I'm not supposed to be getting hurt this way. And you're replaying the scene over and over again, and it's really messing with you. That's the second arrow. So if you think about true forgiveness, I think it is not shooting ourselves with that second arrow, right? But still dealing with the reality and accepting the reality of the first arrow. So it's very hard to accept dealing with getting hurt while you're just ruminating on the fact that how could this happen to me? How could this be me? Right? So think about it that way. Now, some ways as a dad that I, and you as well, can present this to your children. So the first thing, I talk about this with my son a lot, is, this idea of rocks in the book bag. You know what I mean? So it's basically like, listen, every time somebody hurts you, you could put a rock in your book bag. But remember, when you put this rock in your book bag, you're going to be weighed down. Every rock you put in your book bag, you're going to be weighed down. So to practice forgiveness, we're still walking on the same trail that we have the book bag for, but we're going to start removing rocks because now our journey can be a little lighter. And by removing a rock doesn't mean you're going to forget what was done to you. By removing a rock doesn't mean you're going to forgive them instantly. By removing a rock doesn't mean that you're not going to tell them that that was wrong. It's just not putting so much stress on you, right? You want to move around this world lightly, and keeping pain that people have caused to you on your back is not a way to move around through this universe, right? It's going to be on you forever. And we got to move lightly. We got to move freely to really see all the things that we want to see come to fruition. Another way you can explain this to your kids, and this is probably more if you want to tell it to a younger kid, I think it works for both ages, but think about hot coal, right? If something is really hot in your hand, what we tend to do is, this is kind of like an illusion, but we think holding hot coal and squeezing it is going to hurt the other person. That's not going to happen. You're the only one getting hurt. So instead of being so frustrated, like, for example, my daughter is best friends with my nephew. My nephew is 4, she's 3. And oftentimes they'll have this thing where they have to apologize to each other because that's what cousins who are a year apart do. They love each other, then they do stuff that hurt each other. And so somebody is always, out of both of them, somebody is always apologizing to the other. Oh, I'm sorry, Kenley. I'm sorry, Kaden. I hear it all the time. And with my daughter, I'm like, hey, Kenley, listen, it is not going to make Kaden hurt if you are just so angry and so upset and fixing your face like this. It's not going to make him hurt. It's only hurting you. So I tell her all the time, try to not be so held on to you just being so angry, thinking that that's going to hurt him. Try to release it, and then just work on the breathing exercises that we work on together. And, you can move on from there. But the most important part about this way of explaining it is letting them know you being so angry and holding on to it is not actually hurting the other person. You're causing pain to yourself. And I think that's the best way to explain it to children. Walk around lightly, take away the rocks out the backpack while still dealing with what happened. And don't hold on to it too tightly. All right. I hope that makes sense. Thank you for listening to this talk. As always, check out the 365 Dad Journal. Please check out the podcast. I go a little bit deeper dive on the podcast, and also subscribe to the Inner Dad Journey newsletter. All of these things are in the description, and I will catch y'all next week. Thank you.